Before I get started on the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, Venerable Abbot and dear Sangha. Continuing on the Dhammapada, the words of wisdom of the Buddha. We're still in chapter 5. Today we'll be discussing verse 65. So in my last Dharma talk we covered verse 64. So I'll repeat both verses since they are twin verses. And we'll go over verse 65 with its story and its commentary. So again, verses 64 and 65 go, "A fool, even though he is associated with a wise man all his life, does not understand the Dharma, just as a spoon does not know the taste of soup. An intelligent man, even though he is associated with a wise man only for a moment, quickly understands the Dharma, just as the tongue knows the taste of soup." The story behind this verse is another short story. And the story is about a group of young friends back in the Buddhist time that went into the forest for some lollygagging or whatever people do in the forest back in 2,500 years ago. But anyway, the story goes that they were with their wives, except for one man. And this one man brought a courtesan, a prostitute of the time. Apparently they pulled her out of the yellow pages or something. I don't know how they found one, but the friends did that for the single friend. But anyway, the story goes that while they're out in the forest and they were resting, they were either swimming in the lake or the river or something, but as they were resting or sleeping, that the courtesan had gone into or had stolen all the possessions, valuable possessions of the men. So all their gold, silver, and whatnot, and kind of ran off. And then once the friends had awoken or completed their rest and noticed that their possessions were gone, they went out in search of this woman. But as they were searching for the woman, they came across the Buddha, who was walking in the forest as well. And stopped and as they saw the Buddha, they stopped and said, "Oh, this looks like a wise man. Maybe he can have some guidance for us." Well, their guidance that they're asking the Buddha was a stupid question. The stupid question was, "Hey, did you see this woman with a whole bunch of stuff that she was carrying?" A completely inappropriate question to ask a Buddha, but that's beside the point. And so the Buddha, being the Buddha, asked them, "Would you rather be searching for this woman or searching for yourselves?" Right? Intrigued, the group of friends had followed the Buddha back to the monastery, to the Jadavana monastery, Jadagrove monastery, and listened to a Dharma talk, one of his Dharma talks he was giving that evening, and they all decided to ordain and become monks. So they left the home life and all became monks. And after a short while, they all had attained arhatship, full enlightenment. And because of the short time of them being ordained and enlightened, the other monks, commentary doesn't say if they were enlightened yet or not, or at least at arhatship or not, but the commentary goes that some other monks had complained, but I guess just brought it up to the Buddha and asked, they've only been here for a short while. Like, how did these group of men already become enlightened? And so the Buddha just gave them a Jataka tale, right? Jataka is the past stories of the past lives of the Buddha or the disciples. It had said that they were all in past lives very intelligent and very well versed in the Dharma and practiced past lives. And so in this life, hearing the Dharma, they were able to quickly understand, quickly attain the fruition of liberation. And that's pretty much it. That's the story, first story, right? And so after he gave that Jataka tale, and he reiterated the verse, just saying that a wise person, if they just associate themselves with another wise person for just a moment, right, then that seed that have been planted in past lives of attainment will come into fruition, right? And it'll be easy for them to attain enlightenment or attain understanding or liberation at this point, in this case. You'll see the difference, the simile of the spoon and tongue between these two verses, right? Whereas in the first verse, verse 64, it's saying that an unwise person is like a spoon. A spoon cannot taste the flavor of soup. But a wise person who has a tongue that can be utilized can taste the flavor of the soup. And so this is kind of the simile of the unwise person versus a wise person. An unwise person cannot taste soup. They're like the spoon. But a wise person can taste the soup because they have a functioning tongue. This is what is essentially encouraging us to not be a spoon, to be a tongue. To be able to taste the fruit of the Dharma. Following the kind of same topic of this entire chapter, it's about our willingness to practice, our ability to put into practice what we know, what we learn, right? And that if we're able to practice diligently, study diligently, and do what we are studying, what you're reading, then you'll become a wise person where at the right time and place, right? That whatever you hear or read, there's going to be that aha moment, that click, that kind of puts everything together. This is why those group of friends were able to attain the Dharma pretty easily, because in a past life, they were probably already enlightened, right? To a degree, not fully enlightened, right? Because if they're fully enlightened as arhats, then they wouldn't have been reborn again. But assume that they were at the third level of enlightenment, right? Because arhatship is the fourth level, the highest level. Sorry, not the highest level, the highest level of a voice hearer, at least. But even as a bodhisattva, right, saint, someone who has attained enlightenment, if they were to be reborn, right, they're going to be reborn as an unenlightened person. But the practice of the Dharma, the understanding of the Dharma, the realization of the Dharma will become much easier, become much quicker, right? So let's say in a past life you've attained enlightenment at the age of 50. Well, in your next life, if you continue to practice the Dharma, if you were fortunate enough, which you should be, to have come into the Dharma, then you'll become enlightened much quicker. Maybe you'll become enlightened at the age of 40, right? And then the next life you become enlightened at age 30, the next life at age 20, until you've reached a point where you no longer become, where you no longer are reborn again. But anyway, in this verse, at least specifically, though it's short and simple, but it has a lot of meaning once contemplated, once meditated on. And once we are able to connect, I guess, the dots here and really look into this verse and its meaning and recognize the potential of being a spoon or a tongue, will give you some insight as to your own mind, right? Because what is the difference between an unenlightened person and an enlightened person? What is the main difference between the two? Actual question.
Like those 4 jars, state of mind means very, it's not clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last jar we have unenlightened people. Very clear state of mind.
Clear mind, right? In other words, an enlightened person knows the self, an unenlightened person does not, right? So if you were here for our retreat last weekend, when I used the examples of the waters, and the dirty and clean waters, right? There was 4 vases of water, each dirtier than the other. And the 4th one was the clear one, representing enlightenment. We're all stuck in the dirtiest water, right? As enlightened, ignorant people, right, who do not know the state of liberation, that do not know the state of being able to eradicate our suffering, we're all stuck in this muddy, dirty water that's always moving, that's always swirling. It has no time to stop and settle, right? Because what happens in dirty water? In the 3rd vase, right, even though it's dirty, but after a while, once it settles, you'll see the differences, right? All the dirt and all the mud's at the bottom, and the water gets clearer and clearer. And then as we practice and as we study and as we progress in our practice, then the water becomes even clearer. And then once we've perfected our practice in the Dharma, we become fully clear-minded, right? But we're all stuck in the 4th. Most of us are stuck in the 4th, dirtiest water. Always embellishing our sufferings, right? Because I also mentioned when we're doing that example that almost everybody will jump from vase 4 to 3, right? From dirtier water to dirty water, right? Even though the dirty water is less dirty than the dirtiest water, it's still dirty. But the difference is that in the less dirty water, that we're actually applying some of our practice into our lives. We're actually practicing what we're teaching. You're actually meditating. You're contemplating. You're following the precepts. You're practicing the 10 good deeds, right? But then when you don't do that, and when you forget about them, you become unmindful, unaware of your actions, speech, and thoughts, then we go back to the dirtiest water. So we're always fluctuating, right? We're fluctuating because you're unmindful 24/7. And this is not to say that we have to be mindful 24/7, because it's almost impossible to be mindful 24/7. But the fluctuation between the dirtiest and the dirtier water is constant, it's consistent, and never change. It's unable to change. And some of us may still live in the dirty water for a while, and maybe even get to the less dirty. I'm gonna go dirtiest, dirty, less dirty, and clean, all right? Just keep that in mind. Dirtiest, dirty, less dirty. Once you start to practice, right, to me, those that have at the very least, taken precepts, right, the 5 precepts as a layperson. If one is to truly uphold those precepts, they live in the dirty water. right? Because they've at least not eradicated, but at least have acknowledged what in life is causing them to suffer, right? Because that is the biggest point of our entire existence is, oh yeah, I'm suffering, or I have all these sufferings, I don't know why I'm suffering. Well, then you're stuck in the dirtiest water. But then, when you sit and meditate and contemplate and start to analyze why you're suffering, the causes of suffering, the reasons of our suffering, what are we attached to? What are we clinging to? What are we expecting in life? What are we expecting of ourselves and what are we expecting of others? Then we're sitting in the dirtier water. But at least in the dirtier water, there's some ounce of visibility, right? There's some, you can see just a speck of the sun at the very surface of it if you're in the middle of this dirtier water, right? And that's enough to motivate the practitioner to do more. But we're stuck in that false mind, right? The dirtiest water is the false mind. Once we at least recognize our suffering, that's step one. So know that we suffer and then recognize our suffering. What keeps you from moving into the less dirtier water is your ability or inability to eradicate your suffering. Because the majority of people in the world have some sort of addiction to their suffering. Whether they're addicted to their anxiety, their depression, their jealousy, their greed, their anger, their expectations, whatever it may be. There's an addiction, there's a level of addiction to that because it brings them comfort. Because they know what it feels like. They know what to expect out of the suffering. They know what to do with it. They know that it is something they can rely on. Right? What kind of stupidity is that? So the process there is to, well, okay, I know my suffering now. I know what's causing my suffering. I know what is keeping me in this false mind, dirtiest water. What do I need to do to move over? So we come to the temple, we listen to the Dharma talks, you do the chanting, you go home, you study, you read, you practice, you do the chanting, you do more meditation, right? You progress. But most people don't do that. Right? Their entire life is in the dirtiest water, and then like, okay, I'm going to go to temple, and they move over, and as soon as you exit the door, you go back to the dirtiest water. 99% of you do that. Every single one of them, at least my students, I know exactly what is causing them to not cross over the bridge of suffering. Right? When people come and say, I want to take precepts, or I want to become a member, or whatever it may be, have a conversation with them. Do a kind of interview. And every once in a while, we'll have conversations back and forth and whatnot. But every single one of my students, I know exactly what's causing them to not become enlightened. Of course, I'm not going to tell them the reason, because that's not my job, that's your job. Right? I can tell you what's causing you suffering. You have to discover it for yourself. But I know for a fact, every single one of them was holding them back. And every single one can be easily eradicated. Easily. Nobody wants to put in the effort. Nobody wants to put in the work. Whether it's too hard, whether they don't feel comfortable doing it, whether they don't want to ask the right questions. Because that's the thing. Contemplation requires you to dissect your own mind, to analyze your own mind, to open wounds of the past, and to acknowledge them, to live with them. People don't want to do that. Why would you sit there and be like, hey, yeah, let's recollect that traumatic event that happened to me 10 years ago. Let's bring that up. Why not, right? For funds. Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. But that's why you're stuck in the dirtiest water. They can either. The Dharma acts as a filter, right? What's changing from the dirtiest water to the dirty water, dirtier water? What changes?
Losing your defilements.
Losing defilements, right? We're losing the causes of our suffering. What is in the mud that's in this dirtiest water? All that mud is our defilements. All that mud is the causes of our suffering, right? What happens when I get a bottle of water if I fill this up? What happens when I put dirt in this water? If I put a little bit, it's not that bad. Put a little bit more, still not that bad. But the more you put in, the more disgusting the water gets. But that's what you're doing. You're just adding more disgust to your life. You're not actually doing anything about it. You reckon it's like, do I want to do this? Do I? Right? You're teasing yourself. Do I want to add this one more suffering to my life? Like, yeah, one more won't hurt. So you add it. Tomorrow, one more just won't hurt, right? You add it. That stupidity cycle continues, and that's how you get the dirtiest water. But then people come and be like, well, I've been here for a year. I've been here for a month. I've been reading. I've been studying. It's not really working. Right? But we should never fault the teaching just because it's not working for you. Because if you can find fault in a teaching intellectually, then that's your sign to let go of the teaching. It just doesn't work. We can't fault the teaching itself, right? But when we find if that teaching doesn't work for you, then we have to ask yourself one of two things. Is the teaching ineffective? Right? Is the teaching itself ineffective? Or are we just unable to understand and apply that teaching to our practice? And so when we go and see enlightened beings or your teacher or any monk or nun that you listen to or follow or whatever it may be, right? If they are full of ignorance, full of greed, full of anger, right? The three poisons of the mind, ignorance, greed, and anger. And you think, oh, maybe it's my teacher's fault, right? Or maybe the teaching is impure. But if you know that they are like the Buddha, and that they and the others that meditate, right, and practice meditation are able to free themselves from these things, then we have to understand that it is most likely our own fault. That we ourselves are lacking the requisites to quickly understand the Dharma. We are not like the group of friends that can just become enlightened after a short while. I can't emphasize how many times I've heard people say when they try to practice meditation, meditation doesn't work for me. It does work. You're just doing something wrong. The practice of meditation clearly works. It's just not working for you because you're not doing it correctly. Or the method is incorrect. But don't let this discourage you, right? This is why we have thousands and thousands of sutras, of discourses. Because the Buddha knew that if I just taught you one size fits all, not everybody's going to get it. Of the 10,000+ sutras that we have, truly there's only 5 categories or types of sutras that the Buddha had taught. And because he was such a great teacher that he knew how to teach, that if he went into a poor village and knew that people were uneducated, who didn't really have a very deep concept or understanding of spirituality or philosophy or religion, he taught them in a way that they would be able to understand. Something simple, something beneficial, something like soup and tongue and spoons. But then if you would teach at the emperor's court or in a society that people were intelligent, were educated, right? Then he would teach them on a higher level so that they would understand, that they would be able to understand it. Because if he taught them at the same level as the poor, these people would think, oh, he must think of, I'm stupid. He's dumbing down the process for me. He's dumbing down the Dharma for me, right? But he didn't want people to think like that. So he taught the same Dharma in multiple ways, so that regardless of who is in the audience, that somebody would be able to understand. So if you come and say, oh, this teaching doesn't work for me, this type of meditation doesn't work for me, this type of contemplation doesn't work for me, this object of meditation doesn't work for me. Okay, great, doesn't work for you, move on. The practice itself isn't at fault. The fault is in you. Right? If you just graduated college with a degree in biology, right, you can't just walk into a hospital and do surgery all of a sudden. Just because you know some medical terms and you know some anatomy doesn't qualify you to be a surgeon. Likewise, reading some Dharma, doing a handful of meditations doesn't qualify you to know that. Doesn't qualify you to become a meditation master or Zen master or a good practitioner. So if you're sitting here for the past 15, 20 minutes, or you come for a week or a month or a year, and say, nothing's working, nothing's happening, where's the fault? To whom does the fault fall on? Certainly not me. Kidding. Could be, right? By no means am I fully enlightened or fully aware of everything either, right? I'm right there in the bucket with you. But the difference is, for most of us, is that half of us is on the side where we at least had some sort of aha moment, some realization that we know that following this path is beneficial, it's fruitful, it brings something. On the other hand, it could just be out of curiosity. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will make sense. So where do you want to be? You want to be on the side of correct, clear mind, or on the side of dirty as water, false mind? Right? Okay, I'm going to stop talking. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts?
I have a question on the story that those good people who thought that they were found, they got enlightenment very fast because of their previous, they were probably practicing, so that's why they were wise enough to get. The question is regarding how this travels from one life to another life. So there's no concept of soul. We talked about that. There's consciousness. How does the consciousness go from one life? I mean, I've never thought about that, but this is like Western culture. This question got asked a lot, like how the consciousness or the karma they go, they take effect to next life, make the life easier, or maybe make those people intelligent enough to, like the story, the fool versus intelligence. So some people are intelligent because of their deeds or their causes or past life, and they are able to grasp very fast, very quickly, like those guys did. But how did they get? Because it might have taken a long time to get to the state, several previous lives, but how does consciousness work? This is kind of a science question, but
I would need an entire Dharma talk about that, to be quite honest. So I'm going to give you a full answer. What I will say is, think of good deeds like compound interest. Okay? consciousness at the fundamental level is nothing more than just energy, right? An entire universe functions on energy, right? Energy doesn't disappear. It just transfers from one form to another, right? So this is kind of the explanation that in Buddhism, at least, we'll give, that consciousness is just the energy shifting from one form to another, right? If I were to throw this up into the air, when it comes back down, it's going to hit something, yes? So you can think of this as consciousness. Once it's released from my hand, this body, it comes down and falls on your head, that's the next life. Okay? And so it just goes into the next life and just does I want to say the word download, because that sounds dumb, but like it's stored, it's refreshing. It's refreshing past deeds, right? Because the consciousness in Buddhism is called the alaya vijnana, right? The store consciousness. That means that all our thoughts, all our speech, all our actions gets housed in the store consciousness. It's like a memory card, right? And that's what gets moved from one form to the other. And so because everything is stored and housed in the store consciousness, in the next life, when you're doing things or practicing, right, it's going to use what's in memory to help you on whatever task or activity or thing that you're doing, right? So if there's some memory of Dharma, some memory of enlightenment from the past, it's going to remember that and bring it back to surface, right? There's so much more to that, but I'll use that as a Dhammapada.
So what's the difference between soul and consciousness? Like other religions talk about soul. For me, I see both are the same thing. It's kind of like come out and then come back. I don't know. I'm just asking.
I typically don't answer questions that are outside of my topic, but I'm going to entertain this question because it's a good question. The question was about the difference between soul and consciousness. I'm going to use Christianity as an example because that's the most obvious. I'm pretty sure we all have some sort of knowledge of that, right? What is the concept of soul in monotheistic religions, at least? When you die, what happens? It's eternal, right? You die, your soul either goes to heaven or goes to hell. Soul, in this case, in this situation, means that the person is unchanging, that is eternal. So in this life, as Quang, once I die, my soul will also be Quang. When you die, the soul will also be Christina, will also be Christopher, right? That the soul is unchanging. But if that's the case, if you were to die and come back, then you should be coming back as the exact same person. If your soul is unchanging and altering, then you should come back as the exact same person. So there should be pictures of you, thousands of pictures of you in history books looking exactly the same, right? But we don't see that. That doesn't happen. So the difference then is that consciousness is just the juice that gives this body the power to function. So when it dies, it's changing because everything's impermanent in the world, right? Soul means that nothing is impermanent. So the soul is impermanent. The soul is permanent. That's clearly not the case because there's nothing impermanent, and there's nothing permanent in the universe. So what makes the soul any different? The universe itself is impermanent because eventually the universe itself will die, right? So the universe, this grand, big thing that had created everything that we know and love and care for, is impermanent. What makes our little itty-bitty soul more special than that? It can't be permanent. It can't be unchanging. It can't be everlasting. So then we bring in this concept of consciousness because consciousness can change, right? According to your deeds, according to your thoughts, speech, and actions. right? According to the karma, according to your merit, according to your good stuff, right? Or bad stuff. There's room for change. There's room for improvement. There's also room to do bad things, good things. And so if we apply the power of mindfulness, then we know that when we're doing something bad, it's only bad. When we do something good, we know it's good. We have the ability to change the karma in this sense, right? Yeah, we're in the life of suffering and dissatisfaction. That's clearly impermanent. If I slapped you right now, that pain is suffering, no? But then if I punched you, you forget about the pain of the slap and you go to the pain of the punch. How is that suffering permanent? Yes? So since nothing is impermanent, nothing is permanent, everything that is impermanent, then that should give us some value of there's capability of change. Okay, I'm going to stop because I'm wasting time. What was your question?
My question was, is it a choice to be a fool or a wise person?
Is it a choice? 100%. 100%. Some knowledge of what wisdom and you don't utilize it, you're even an extra fool. In the words of our Venerable Abbot Sukho, extra home, extra crazy. Why would you not use something that's beneficial to you? Why would you not use the tools that have been laid out for you, that's been given to you, to do good with them, to change your life? This is why I say, I know exactly, of all my students, I know exactly what is causing you, what is your roadblock. I know exactly what's your roadblock. I know exactly what's your roadblock. I know exactly what's your roadblock, and I definitely know what's your roadblock. You know you have these roadblocks. You know, you see the sign. For most of you, you've even installed the sign yourself. It says, stop, do not cross. You put it there. And you're expecting someone else to remove it. You're expecting someone else to walk you across this bridge. No one's going to do that for you. No one can enlighten you. The Buddha himself can't even enlighten you. All he can do is say, pull out the sign. That's it. That's what he's telling us. Right now you're a spoon. Stop being a spoon. Be a tongue. Any other questions? We have time for one more question.
Ignorance is foolishness. Like people ignores of mind, ignore everything, and that's foolishness. So, and practice makes the slowly while until then.
Right.
Yeah, once you start doing it, so that's the choice. Like once we start following the eightfold path, and then we start becoming intelligent, and then eventually start grasping the things and become wiser.
Because you can sit in meditation and contemplate on why, let's just say why you don't like your coworker, right? You can sit there and meditate on it and you come to the realization, this is exactly why I don't like this coworker. Or why I don't like this job. Let's just say job in general. It's a more easier concept. You sit and you meditate on why I don't like your job. Why don't I like my job? Why is my job causing me suffering? And you sit there and meditate on it for a while, maybe a day or two, a week or so, and you come to that realization. This is exactly why I don't like my job. But then what do? You get up and still go to this job. You don't do anything about it. It's one thing to say, I hate my job, and I don't like my job, I don't want to go to my job. It's one thing to say that and recognize that. It's another thing to not do anything about it, Because you have the ability to do something about it. You have the ability to change positions. You have the ability to move departments. You have the ability to change jobs. That's too much work. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through the process of interviewing. I don't want to go through the process of quitting. Excuses. All of you, full of excuses.
We are addicted to the drug is harm.
100% addicted. So I'm saying you're all. Why? Because it brings you comfort?
False comfort.
False comfort, exactly. That's a beautiful term. False comfort. False comfort. Because what happens, right? Because in these vials of water that I showed last weekend, I asked the question of what they all have in common. The dirtiest water, the dirtier water, the dirty water, and the clean water. What do they all have in common? Clean water, right? The Dharma. So even the dirtiest water, the swampiest water, has Buddha Dharma, has Buddha nature, the ability to become enlightened. And so as we progress, right, in each of these, the vases represent our body, okay? And the water represents the Dharma. And each one has a lotus. And if we know how a lotus is grown, a lotus can only be grown out of mud, right? So we have to be in the dirtiest water for the lotus to even exist, aka us being born, because you can't become enlightened without a body, or without a mind, at least. And so we have that Dharma, we have that lotus seed. But because the water is so dirty, it has no access to sun, and it needs this heat, it needs that energy for it to grow. But as we practice, and the water becomes clearer and clearer, then there's more potential for the sun to hit it, and more potential for the lotus to grow. And as it goes through the water, right, it cleanses, it purifies itself, which is what we do in our practice, in our meditation. We purify the defilements that's causing these waters to be dirty. And then eventually we get to the clearest water. The lotus gets to the surface. It touches it's sun-kissed, and it blooms. It's fully enlightened. So why are you stuck here? Why are you addicted to your suffering? That's your meditation object question. All right, we will go ahead and transfer the mirror and then go to chanting. Please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them enlightenment. And the censer now is burning all the Dharma realm in every place auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and Great Bodhisattva. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted, mindful, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Midst to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty and three periods of time. To the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, restored great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea life Bodhisattva. Surpass profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Flee in this world, I am grateful and joyful to hear the Lotus Sutra. How hard to be born a human again, but I might hope to hear once the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha moon is hidden, the son of Maitreya not yet arisen. In the long night's darkness, in between only the Lotus Sutra sheds its light. The wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Sutra. Whoever copies it, reads it, lives it, they say will be called preacher of the fivefold Dharma, with his 6 roots cleansed in the. He who chants the Lotus Sutra is guarded by a heavenly host. He wanders the world without, like a lion king. Namo Sadhamma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadhamma Pundarika Sutra, Namo Sadhamma Pundarika Sutra. Just go to tab 7, page 126. Lotus assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The Lotus of the Wonderful Law, Chapter 23, the former affairs of the Bodhisattva medicine king. At the time Bodhisattva consolation king Flower spoke to the Buddha, saying, world honored one, how does the Bodhisattva medicine king come and go in the Saha world? World honored, this Bodhisattva medicine king has carried out some hundreds, thousands, and thousands, millions of nayutas of difficult practices, arduous practice. Very well, world honored one, could I ask you to explain a little the heavenly beings, dragons, gods, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kinna, mahoragas, human and non-human beings, and the bodhisattvas who have come from other lands, and the multitude voice hearers will all be delighted to hear you. At the time the Buddha addressed the Bodhisattva consolation king Flower, saying, many kalpas in the immeasurable lands Ganges sands, there was a Buddha named Sun Moon, pure bright virtue, thus come one worthy of offerings of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone understanding, the world unexcelled, worthy trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha world honored. sands of 72 Ganges. This Buddha's lifespan was 42,000 kalpas, and the lifespan of the Bodhisattvas was the same in his land. There were no distinction of genders, hell dwellers, hungry spear, beasts or asuras, and no kinds of suffering. The ground was as level as the palm of a made of lapis lazuli and adorned with jeweled trees. Jeweled curtains covered it over. Banners of jeweled flowers hung down, and jeweled urns and incense burners filled the land. There were platforms made of the sand, with a tree by each platform. The tree situated an arrow shot length from the platform. These jeweled trees all had bodhisattvas and voice hearers sitting under, and each of them playing on heavenly instruments and singing the praises of the Buddha, offering at the time for the sake of the Bodhisattva, gladly seen by all living beings, and the other numerous Bodhisattvas and multitude of voice here. The Buddha preached the Lotus Sutra. This Bodhisattva, gladly seen by all living beings, delighted in carrying out difficult practices in the midst of the law. Sun, moon, pure, bright virtue, he applied himself diligently and traveled about here and there, single-mindedly seeking Buddhahood for a period of fully 12,000 years. After that, he was able to gain the samadhi, in which one can manifest all physical forms. Having gained the samadhi, his heart was filled with great joy, and he thought that by gaining the samadhi, in which I can manifest all physical forms, is due entirely to the fact that I heard the Lotus Sutra. I must now make an offering to the Buddha, sun, moon, pure, and to the Lotus Sutra. Immediately he entered the samadhi, and in the midst of the sky rained down mandarava flowers, gray mandarava flowers, and finely ground hard black particles of sandalwood. They filled the whole sky like clouds as they came raining down. He also rained the incense of the sandalwood that grows by the southern seashore. 6 taels of this incense is worth as much as the saha. All these he used as an offering to the Buddha. When he had finished making this offering, he rose from his samadhi and thought to himself, though I have employed my supernatural powers to make this offering to the Buddha, it is not as good as making an offer. Sandalwood, kundaroka, drushika, pika, aloes, and liquor, amber, gum, and he also drank of champaka and other kinds of flowers, doing this for a period of fully 1,200 years, anointing his body with the fragrant oil. He appeared before the Buddha, sun, moon, pure virtue, wrapped his body in heavenly jeweled robes, poured fragrant oil over his head, and calling on his transcendental power, set fire to his body. The glow shone forth, illuminate worlds equal in number, 80 million Ganges. The Buddhas in these worlds simultaneously spoke out in praise, saying, excellent, excellent, good man, this is true diligence. This is what is called a true Dharma offering to the thus come one through one. Use flowers, incense, necklaces, incense for burning, powdered incense, base incense, heavenly silk, banners and canopies, along with the incense of the sandalwood that grows by the southern seashore. cities, his wife and children. He is no match for this good man. This is called the foremost donation of all among all donations. This is most highly prized, for one is offering the Dharma to the thus come. After they had spoken these words, they each fell silent. The body of the Bodhisattva burned for 1200 years. When that period of time had passed, burned itself out. After the Buddha, gladly seen by all living beings, had made this Dharma offering, and his life had come to an end. He was the land of the Bodhi in cross-legged position. He was suddenly born by transformation, and at once for the benefit of his father, he spoke in verse form, saying, "Great King, you should now understand this. Having walked about in a certain place, he immediately gained the samadhi that allows me to manifest all physical forms. I have carried out my endeavors with great diligence and cast aside." But when he had recited this verse, he said to his father, "The Buddha, sun, moon, pure, bright virtue is still present. At this time previously I made an offering to this Buddha and gained a dharani that allows me to understand the words of all living beings. Moreover, I have heard this Lotus Sutra with its 800,000, 10,000 millions of Nayutas, Kankadas, Vivadas, Akshobhyas of verses. Great King, I must now make an offering to this Buddha." Having said this, he seated himself. The platform made of the 7 treasures rose up into the air to the height of 7 tala trees, and proceeding to the place where the Buddha bowed his head to the ground in observance to the Buddha's feet, put the nails of his 10 fingers together. Buddha, the countenance so rare and wonderful, its bright beams illuminating the 10 directions. At a previous time I made an offering, and now once more I draw near. At the time after the Bodhisattva, gladly seen by all living beings, had spoken this verse, he said to the world honored one, "Is the world honored one still present in the world?" At the time the Buddha, sun, moon, pure, bright virtue, said to the Bodhisattva, gladly seen by all living beings, "Good man, the time has come for my nirvana. The time has come for extinction. You may provide me with a comfortable bed, for tonight will be my parinirvana." He also commanded the Bodhisattva, gladly seen by all living beings, saying, "Good man, I take this law of the Buddha and entrust it to you. In addition, the Bodhisattva and great disciples, along with the law of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi and the 1,000,000,000-fold 7 jewel world with its jewel trees and jewel platforms and heavenly beings, to wait on and attend them. All these I hand over to you. I also entrust my body that remain after I have passed into extinction. You must distribute them abroad, offerings to them far and wide. You should erect many thousands of towers to house them. The Buddha, sun, moon, pure, bright virtue, having given these up to the Bodhisattva, gladly seen by living beings, at night in the last watch of the night entered nirvana. Please go to page 171, tab 9. Heart of the Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equal feelings, so perceptions, nor mental formation, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no there is no attainment, the bodhisattva's grounded in no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Dhammapada Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequal mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra of Prajna Paramita should therefore Gate Pada Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Pada Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Pada Samgate Bodhi Swaha. Jinn beings are limitless, I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless, I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite, I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme, I vow to attain. I vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms of existence and their suffering. Namo thus come one worthy of offerings, of proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful in leaving the world through liberation, complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed night taming hero, teacher of gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamapapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamapapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamapapta Bodhisattva, Namo Siddhigarva Bodhisattva, Namo Siddhigarva Bodhisattva, Namo Siddhigarva Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva Guarding Bodhisattvas. Take refuge in the Buddha, the one you shows me the way. In this life I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of and beauty in the world, dwelling in the refuge of. I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation, dwelling in the refuge of Sangha. Shining light supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking rest in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold community, all beings, and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness, gives rise to benefit without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path.